Breathe deep. Imagine your legs more limber in Duluth Trading Double Flex Denim. Envision euphorically squatting for that can of suds, bending for your toolbox in a state of bliss, lunging for your laser level on a whole new level. Relax and allow the flex to fill you with ability. Find your inner flex in Double Flex Denim only at Duluth Trading.
The Roses were living the dream.
To you, my darling.
No, to you.
Until it all came crashing down.
You got fired.
Fired?
On August 29th, stop.
You stop!
And see The Roses. Rated R. In theaters everywhere, August 29th.
The Stone Zone on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Stone Zone. Well, to the surprise of virtually no one, a whistleblower has come forward to the FBI and said under oath that they were directly involved when Senator, then Congressman Adam Shifty Schiff, agreed and announced that he would leak classified information to the media in order to damage President Donald Trump, which is, of course, a violation of federal law and sets Schiff up for yet another criminal indictment. Schiff is already fighting charges that he engaged in mortgage fraud when he declared both his Burbank, California condominium and his home in Potomac, Maryland as his principal legal residence, getting a tax break in both states as well as qualifying for a lower mortgage rate and a lower insurance rate. Last week, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, authorized Ed Martin as special counsel to pursue criminal charges against Schiff in that matter, but this one appears a bit more serious. Now, this news is actually not new. Back in December of 2024, the Inspector General of the Biden administration released a report. One of the most surprising claims in that report was that one Democrat staffer on the House Intelligence Committee had voluntarily told the FBI almost immediately after the investigation of 2017 that he believed two members of Congress and a number of Democrat staffers were involved in the leaking of classified information, leading to further investigation of those identified. While the report doesn't identify the actual whistleblower, it does name the members of Congress. They were Congressman Adam Schiff and his sidekick, Representative Eric Swalwell, both of California. They were both members of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. So the DOJ report further noted that the only two members of Congress they investigated were Schiff and Swalwell. Adam Schiff is, of course, perhaps the greatest single congenital liar, huckster, and con man in the history of the United States Congress. He broke both House rules and the law, as far as I was concerned, after Robert Mueller's witch hunt hoax prosecutor told two different federal judges that they had probable cause to charge me for treason, conspiracy against the United States, counterfeiting, money laundering, unauthorized access to a government computer, as well as aiding and abetting a conspiracy both before and after the fact. And of course, once they obtained all my emails, all my text messages, and a record of all my phone calls, they found no evidence whatsoever of those crimes. Schiff went public saying that based on my testimony before the House Intelligence Committee that I would be charged with perjury. Just that comment alone is a violation of House rules and the law, since my testimony at that point was entirely classified. None of this, of course, is new because the history of Schiff and his fabrications are always shifting. The antics of Adam Schiff are standard operating procedure because this guy's a charlatan who frequently makes explosive public charges, which are then readily lapped up by the fake news media in order to generate headlines. Schiff and his enablers in the media virtually never come up with the proof to back up their accusations. It was March 22nd, 2017, in an exchange with Chuck Todd of Meet the Press Daily. Chuck was subsequently canned by NBC. Frankly, given Chuck's knowledge of politics, he belongs behind the counter at Macy's anyway. But Todd suggested that the evidence of collusion regarding Donald Trump and Russian intelligence was, at best, circumstantial. Quoting Schiff, he said, "Actually, no, Chuck. I can tell you that the case is far more than that. I can't go into the particulars, of course, but I have seen more than circumstantial evidence. I will say that there is evidence that is not circumstantial, and that is why we are investigating." Of course, Schiff never provided any such evidence. Then on November 2nd of that year, during a House Intelligence hearing, Schiff laid out his claim of Trump-Russian collusion. Quote, "What is clear," Schiff said, "the Kremlin repeatedly told the campaign it had dirt on Clinton and offered to help it, and at least one top Trump official, the president's own son, accepted. In fact, the Russian that he refers to was an attorney. Schiff ignored the fact that Donald Trump Jr. campaign manager Paul Manafort, as well as the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, met with the Russian woman lawyer, and she provided no information whatsoever. What Schiff also didn't mention was that the woman was working for Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. They're the people who produced the bogus Steele dossier. In fact, the Russian woman lawyer both met with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS prior to her meeting at Trump Tower, and after the meeting, she was debriefed. So once again, Schiff prevaricates on the question of whether anything of value was provided. The meeting, I'm told, produced nothing whatsoever. Then on December 10th of 2017, Schiff once again stated, "We have all of these facts in chronology. You'd have to believe that these were all isolated incidents, not connected to each other. It just doesn't make rational sense." Now, we know that as recently as December of this year, Senator-elect Adam Schiff of California, who lies just as easily as he breathes, yet again said on CNN that his House Intelligence Committee investigation had identified Russian collusion with Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. High-level Trump campaign officials were passing polling information to a Russian intelligence asset. Schiff lied yet again. The campaign official that Schiff is referring to is former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort, and the alleged Russian intelligence asset is a man named Konstantin Kilimnik. There are a number of fundamental problems with this entirely phony narrative. This, by the way, is the same phony narrative that the corrupt prosecutor Andrew Weissmann trots out whenever he's asked why he was a party to wasting $30 million in the Mueller witch hunt, which produced nothing whatsoever. First, there's not only substantial evidence that Kilimnik is not a Russian intelligence asset, but the evidence actually shows that he was working extensively with U.S. intelligence. Kilimnik, by the way, actually worked for Senator John McCain prior to his assistance to the Trump campaign. Paul Manafort himself addressed this bogus claim by Schiff in his own book, Political Prisoner, Persecuted, Prosecuted, but Not Silenced, when he said, "My associate Konstantin Kilimnik was not only not a Russian agent, but he was a U.S. asset. He was so important to the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv that he had a code name to protect his identity in cable traffic between Ukraine and Washington." Trump went on to say the same anonymous U.S. government sources who pushed this false narrative had access to the State Department files that identified Kilimnik as a valued asset. They knew he was not a spy. Go on to add to that the fact that the Trump campaign had no proprietary polling information at that juncture. So any information that Manafort may have sent to Kilimnik would have been on the public record. In other words, polling that anyone could find online. once again, Adam Schiff, confronted with the fact that he had found no evidence whatsoever of Russian collusion, falls back on a lie. Now, according to these recently released FBI documents, this new whistleblower is working closely with the FBI and was privy to Schiff's behavior before he was elected senator, when Schiff was the head of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence while in Congress. Schiff told the whistleblower and other staffers in a meeting that he would be leaking classified information in order to hurt Trump that was meant to result in Trump's indictment. The whistleblower voiced his concern that Schiff was suggesting was illegal and was assured by people in attendance for the meeting that they weren't worried about the legality of it because, well, Schiff said he would not get caught. Eventually, the whistleblower went through the appropriate channels where their complaint was buried, that is, until now. Because of President Trump and his heroic Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, whistleblowers are now being venerated and their testimony is being legitimately heard. This is not good news for Adam Shifty Schiff, also known as Pencil Neck or Watermelon Head to his detractors, as well as his deep state collaborators. It's only a matter of time before they're placed in a jail cell. It is my understanding, based on solid sourcing, that a grand jury has already been impaneled in South Florida and is already hearing evidence against Barack Obama, Vice President Joe Biden, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, the one-time Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller, former acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, de facto head of the Mueller witch hunt Andrew Weissmann, and others. Why Florida rather than Washington, D.C.? Well, the legal theory here is pretty solid. This was a continuing conspiracy, a seditious conspiracy, to remove a sitting president, or later it became a seditious conspiracy to prevent a former president from running for president again. And therefore, the FBI raid on the president's home at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach was the last act of this seditious conspiracy, followed only by the appointment of Jack Smith, whose appointment was not constitutional or legal because Smith's appointment was never confirmed by the U.S. Senate as required by the Constitution. That is why the Russian collusion hoax is going to be presented to grand juries in Florida. I'm told there will also be grand juries impaneled in Washington, D.C., but it is likely, according to Vice President Vance in an interview we're going to talk about in a few moments, that the entire cabal behind the greatest single dirty trick in American political history, the massive abuse of power in which the full authority of the United States government and the incredible capabilities of our intelligence agents were weaponized, utilizing two false claims. First, of course, those contained in the bogus Steele dossier, and then the fake claim that the Democrat National Committee had been hacked online by Russian intelligence. Of course, there is no evidence that either one of those claims is accurate. You're listening to Roger Stone right here in the Stone Zone on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and we'll be right back with the rest of the bombshell political news. But for the time being, I would say if it's Schiff, flush it. We'll be right back.
The Stone Zone on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. It's only the hottest political show on radio today. Here in breaking news, President Donald Trump has seized control over the District of Columbia in response to an incredible crime wave that has turned Washington, D.C. upside down. President Donald Trump has exercised his constitutional authority, has announced the federalization of the city, and he will be deploying the National Guard in order to keep order. Incredibly, Nancy Pelosi actually put up a post on social media where she said President Donald Trump delayed the deploying of the National Guard on January 6th, but now he is deploying the National Guard to seize control of the District of Columbia. That it may be her greatest lie yet. Kash Patel, the current FBI director, among others, has published undisputed proof that President Donald Trump offered the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, to deploy the National Guard days prior to January 6th, which would have had to have the de facto approval of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and the offer was denied. So the idea that Trump delayed the deployment of the National Guard on January 6th is just the latest in the series of lies by Nancy Pelosi. How did Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, go from being worth approximately $540,000 when first elected to Congress to being worth $154 million, according to her most recent financial filing? The practice of insider trading by members of Congress, I think, is one of the most outrageous things going on in the swamp. It's interesting that Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida and Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee have sponsored legislation that would ban insider trading. In fact, any stock trading in stocks or bonds by sitting members of Congress. Now, you would think that this would make sense, but they are encountering deep opposition from those members of Congress who are charter members of the swamp. If you take a little time to go online, of course, with artificial intelligence, this is pretty easy. The massive fortunes made by members of Congress over a short period of time can only be attributed to insider trading. That is to say, buying stocks or shorting stocks based on information that they learn as members of Congress through their committee assignments. This is a practice that has to stop. On Monday, President Trump called his decision a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. Trump described Washington, D.C. accurately as a city overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, including roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs, and homeless people. He's called to clean up the city, essentially doing for Washington, D.C. what Mayor Rudy Giuliani did in New York City in the 1990s. You're listening to The Stone Zone. Don't go away, because we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back in the Stone Zone. Here we talk politics, and more politics. I think unless you've been under a rock someplace, you're unaware of the fact that several weeks ago, Elon Musk and Donald Trump had a public falling out. Musk posted a couple of attacks on Trump that he later apologized for and withdrew. I think it is time for the Make America Great movement and Elon Musk to mend fences for the greater good of saving the country and winning the midterm elections. There is no question that Musk's assistance to Trump was of great value in the 2024 election. It's also important to note that once Musk bought Twitter, changed it over to be called X, but made the decision to release all of the proof that intelligence agents from the previous administration were working hand in glove with executives at Twitter to censor people online who questioned the outcome of the 2020 election or questioned the efficiency and effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccination or questioned whether Hunter Biden's shocking laptop contents were in fact Russian disinformation. Once Elon Musk did that, of course, he painted a target. Suddenly, Musk and his many companies were the target of 9 federal investigations. This week, it was revealed that ex-CEO Elon Musk had given $15 million in late June to entities supporting President Trump and the Republican Party, including 2 $5 million donations to super PACs for the Republican House and Senate candidates, as well as a $5 million donation to the pro-Trump super PAC MAGA Inc. This was after Musk publicly floated the idea of a centrist America party, a new third party, that could potentially split the vote of voters with common sense in next year's midterm elections. Now, as I noted, Musk made several offensive and petty public statements towards President Trump after Musk publicly opposed the Big Beautiful Bill, President Trump's signature legislation that included the greatest, largest single tax cut on the American people, did away with the tax on tips, and ended the taxation of Social Security benefits for 88% of Americans receiving Social Security. Musk, as you may recall, stated without any proof that Trump was in the Epstein files. That's not true. We have since learned the Epstein files were corrupted by the Biden-era officials, and that Trump's administration has taken multiple measures to get accurate information about Epstein into the public eye. Despite the Democrats' public posturing, a Democrat judge in Florida has refused to make public the grand jury proceedings against Jeffrey Epstein in Florida in the early 20s, and a federal judge in New York has refused thus far to make the grand jury proceedings from 2019, in which Epstein was charged with child sex trafficking and a second count of conspiring to engage in child sex trafficking, public. So while the Democrats talk about their desire for full disclosure and keep implying falsely that there's something in the Epstein records embarrassing to Donald Trump, well, I know better. I hope all of this information does become public, because all you're going to learn is how many times Bill Clinton went to Epstein's island. It's at least 3 times based on the sworn testimony of Virginia Roberts Giuffre and other plaintiffs who sued Epstein over his exploitation of them. And then, of course, the 26 times that Bill Clinton was on Epstein's plane, the Lolita Express. Anyway, over the past several weeks, Musk has stopped bashing President Trump, and he's stopped talking about forming a new third party. After one of Musk's top Doge lieutenants, Edward Korestein, was attacked by a vicious mob of thugs in Washington, D.C. over the weekend, Musk came out and formally supported President Trump's plan to federalize our nation's capital, to take over control of the police department, and to deploy the National Guard in order to restore law and order. Quote, if D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run this city the way it should be run, as well as putting criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. That was what President Trump wrote in a Truth Social post. A few days ago, Musk then wrote, in response to Trump's post, a gang of about a dozen young men tried to assault a woman in her car at night in D.C. A Doge team member saw what was happening, ran to defend her, and was severely beaten to the point of concussion, but he did save the woman's life. It is time to federalize the District of Columbia. So it's clear that Musk is coming to his sentence after his flame out earlier this year. Now, I value Elon Musk and what he has done for free speech in this country. I was very active on Twitter. I had 980,000 followers until 2017, when, without explanation, I was banned on the website. I would subsequently be banned on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. By the way, they never give you any reason why you're being banned. You're being banned because they say so. You're being banned because you expose uncomfortable truths or opinions that they're not comfortable with. I never really thought that I would be restored on Twitter. By then it was X. I simply went online and filled out a form requesting that I be reinstated. I'm very grateful to Elon Musk for the fact that he restored my X account. You can find me at Roger J. Stone Jr. That's Roger J. Stone Jr. I'm verified there. By the way, there are dozens of Roger Stones on X, but there's only one real Roger Stone. That's where you can find out every day who's going to be on the Stone Zone program that day. I'm also continue to be banned on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. In all honesty, I don't really miss it. I think that trust in Musk's judgment is being restored, and his importance in the next elections cannot really be understated. Musk's acquisition of X stopped big tech from censoring Trump throughout the 2024 election cycle, and then his infusion of hundreds of millions of dollars into Trump's campaign helped build a grassroots infrastructure that rivaled the Democrats for the first time in decades. Even though the Democrat Party support is in the toilet, and radicals like New York City mayoral candidate Zohran, the Ayatollah Mamdani, are becoming the face of the party, the 2026 midterms will not be a cakewalk for Republicans, regardless of how strong and vibrant our economy will be. It's already strong. Think how much stronger it will be once President Trump finally gets an interest rate cut from the Federal Reserve. Unfortunately, our current Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, refused to use the same metrics that he used the last four times the Federal Reserve cut rates. Today, the rate of inflation and the rate of unemployment are either lower than or at the same level as the last four times that the Federal Reserve cut rates. That's because the last two times they cut rates were to try to benefit first Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris. Today, Powell insists that he can't cut rates because he's unsure of the impact of the new tariff deals that President Donald Trump has negotiated. Well, we know the impact. They told us that inflation would soar. Inflation remains low. They said the dollar would be unstable. The dollar remains strong. They said the stock market would crash. We have a record Dow. If there is any negative impact of our new tariff revenues, which is highly unlikely because in the month of June, it was the first time in 15 years that the United States government actually ran a surplus, meaning more money came in than the government was paying out. Well, they could always adjust interest rates then. No, I think Jerome Powell and those on the Federal Reserve continue to act politically in an obvious effort to stop the Trump economy from booming. 2026 is still going to be tough. I was on Laura Loomer's program the other night on Rumble, where she flatly predicted the Republicans would lose the House. I mean, as a veteran of 50 years in American politics and a veteran of 13 national presidential campaigns, I would point out that in politics, a week is a lifetime. And that no one can predict today what will happen in the upcoming off-year elections. But this much is true. Without President Trump on the ballot helping pull the Republicans towards victory, Republican candidates will have to stand on their own merits. And oftentimes, in some places, those merits are not particularly exceptional. Republicans will have to present candidates with dynamism necessary to captivate the voting public in order to win in 2026. Now, this will be a difficult proposition because the Republican establishment has not yet learned the lessons of MAGA. President Trump is still dogged by a fifth column of Republicans who want to put him in a box and limit his success. This was seen very recently by the Republican Senate leadership's refusal to allow President Trump to put forward recess appointments, halting the president's ability to put key appointees into key positions within the federal government. The swamp realizes that personnel is policy, and they will slow roll appointments and nominations as much as possible in order to grind President Trump down through the tedious process of Washington, D.C. rulemaking minutia. Even today, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York refuses to acquiesce in the appointment of Jay Clayton, the former head of the SEC, to serve as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. No one can question Clayton's qualifications for this position, given his previous service both as a private attorney and as a public official as the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's a perfect example of the deep state swamp politics that paralyze the appointments process. Too many Republicans remain content to be out of power where they can talk a big game, raise millions of dollars for their reelection campaigns, blame the Democrats at every turn, but shirk the responsibility of actually governing. Despite his faults, Elon Musk is not one of those individuals. As impetuous as he may be at times, Musk earnestly yearns to take a sledgehammer to the reviled Washington, D. status quo. Theoretically, Musk is the perfect person to be the George Soros of the MAGA right, a position that Musk once relished before his recent public falling out with Trump. When fully activated, Musk can force the Republican funding and organizational apparatus to run a sleek, modernized, data-driven operation in the midterms that the party would otherwise resist. So I say it's time for MAGA to mend fences with Elon Musk for the greater good of saving the country and winning the midterm elections. Democrats regularly put personal squabbles aside during election time for the betterment of pushing their radical agenda, and Republicans must show the same level of unity with Elon Musk if they want to restore America's greatness. Musk's drive, his competence, his vision can prevent the arrogant political hacks of the Republican establishment from exercising the mismanagement that they are famous for. You're listening to the Stone Zone. I'm Roger Stone. Don't go away because we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone right here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Well, Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed in an interview on Monday that a lot of people will be indicted over the Russian collusion hoax. That, of course, was the conspiracy by Obama's administration, later carried on under Joe Biden, to frame President Donald Trump as a Russian agent in order to prevent him from winning the presidency. And then after that failed, to sabotage his presidency and then attempt to remove him from the presidency. And then subsequently weaponized in an effort to bankrupt him, keep him off the ballot in all 50 states, put him in jail, and I think, at least in 2 incidents, to actually shoot and kill him. See, I see all of this as a continuing seditious conspiracy. I think all of these events are related. If you examine them, they were all executed and orchestrated by the exact same people. We're talking about miscreants like Norm Eisen and the most corrupt federal prosecutor in U.S. history, Andrew Weissman. That guy got his start covering up mob murders in Brooklyn, moved to destroy the Enron Corporation that he prosecuted for corruption that did not exist. His convictions in that case, which he keeps pointing to as a gold standard, were reversed by the U.S. Supreme Court 9-0. Then, of course, he destroyed Arthur Andersen, their accounting firm, costing hundreds of people their jobs and sending people to jail only to have them released when their convictions were reversed. Weissman was the de facto head of the Mueller investigation. Mueller himself, as we now know, was non compos mentis. He proved that in his nearly incoherent testimony before Congress. That's because after the release of Mueller's final report, which Attorney General Bill Barr, and one of the few good things he did, declared there was no evidence of Russian collusion or WikiLeaks collaboration. Weissman sent Mueller to testify before the Congress, which was meant to breathe life back into the Mueller investigation conclusions, but backfired tragically when Mueller was virtually incoherent. Now it is publicly reported that Mueller is institutionalized in a home because of his mental deterioration, which tells me that he'll probably use an insanity defense when he's charged with seditious conspiracy and treason. Vice President Vance probably said it best when he said, if you look at what Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, and Kash Patel, the FBI Director, have revealed in the last couple of weeks, I don't know how anybody can look at that and say there was not an aggressive violation of the law. I absolutely think they broke the law, and you're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that. Vance is, of course, correct. Even before the Trump administration started declassifying and releasing Russiagate documents, it was already obvious that individuals like former CIA Director John Brennan, who has, by the way, reportedly fled the country, is holed up in Austria, where MSNBC, I'm told, has put together a makeshift studio for him so it can appear that he's still in the country. Former FBI Director James Comey and former National Security Advisor Susan Rice were guilty of capital offenses. What is the certified punishment for treason again? But now that the full scope of the seditious conspiracy is understood because of the disclosures by both Gabbard and Patel, it's clear that this was ordered from the very top, that the entire operation was approved by Hillary Rodham Clinton. We have absolute proof of that in an email between her top aides, but was also hatched in the Oval Office by President Barack Hussein Obama himself. It can no longer be denied. It is now time for these people to see justice. Either we have a justice system in which there is one standard, or we still have a two-tiered justice system. I was subjected to completely bogus charges in an effort to pressure me to testify falsely against President Donald Trump, which I resolutely refused to do. In this case, however, Comey, Brennan, Rice, Clapper, Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, Robbie Mook, Robert Mueller, Andrew Weissman, and many others actively engaged in treasonous activity. They were involved in a seditious conspiracy. And frankly, I can't wait until 29 heavily armed FBI agents in full SWAT gear and brandishing fully automatic M4 assault weapons storm their homes at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm Roger Stone. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?